examples called out yesterday of people who were being incredibly intentional and holding each other to promises we made. So I'd ask you if anyone's violating the rules of engagement during the Socratic discussion, since Mr. Greenleef will be leading it, I would encourage you just to gently tap him on the shoulder. If you feel a tap on your shoulder, it means you need to leave the group quietly and work in silent core skills at your desk for the rest of the time. So just a slight tap means, sorry, you're violating the rules of engagement. You're not being completely engaged. Today is a real joy to introduce Clint Greenleef. He's gonna give you his own story, so I'm not going to talk about it much, other than to say, without him, there would be no you here, because this book that he was kind enough to publish, Unschooling Rules, is what launched Acton Academy. And if you ever want to read the story about what launched Acton Academy, look at the introduction to this book, and you'll even see a young man named Charlie Sanford mentioned in it, along with his brother Sam. So if not for Clint, this wouldn't have existed. But Clint's story is one of an entrepreneur who was a revolutionary in printing. He took a world where you had to go to a big, powerful publisher and lay down and beg to have your book printed, and turned it into a world where any entrepreneur can have their book printed. And so he is an entrepreneurial revolutionary, just like you are an educational revolutionary. So with no more introduction than that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a heck of an introduction. I don't know if I deserve all the credit, but I'll certainly take it. All right, so close your eyes for a second and imagine that you're 22 years old. It's a long way away from a lot of you guys right now. 22 years old, and you're working at a job as an accountant at Deloitte & Touche, and you feel like you're doing what everyone says you're supposed to do. You're having a good job, you're making good money, and everyone says this is great for you. And all you can think about is how much you hate your job. Your job is not much fun. You're working 16 hours a day. You're not really doing much fun stuff anymore. College is over. And now, you know you're not doing what you need to do. And at the same time, when you were in college just a few months ago, you wrote a book, kind of as a joke, kind of a little bit silly, about your time in the Marines and how to tie a tie and how to shine your shoes. Stuff that a lot of people certainly know how to do. But for whatever reason, the book started to sell. And so now, everyone around you says, stay in accounting, keep on doing what you're doing. And every single fiber of your being says, go out and sell your book. Tie ties, shine shoes, do all that sort of stuff. So who has any idea? What kind of thoughts would go through your mind in making a decision like that? Yeah.
I wouldn't stick with my job even if people told me, because if I'm not happy, then it's kind of like, then nobody can force you to be happy.
Sure, and happiness is important. What on the other side of that, if you want to stay happy, but you also have to do what? You got to make sure you can eat. You got to make sure you can pay bills. So, any other thoughts on things that would make you think, would you want to keep on doing this job, or would you want to go out and do something else? You don't really know anything about publishing. I would say right now that after a couple days, y'all probably know more about publishing in books than at 22, starting a publishing company or learning about books. You know about. Any fears or concerns about going out and doing that? All right, well, let me tell you a little bit more about the story. So this right here was the first book that I did. Now keep in mind, this is before the internet did anything more than really just had news on it, right? So there was no e-commerce. There was really never a chance to go out on Amazon. And Amazon did exist, but all they really had was books at the time, and you could really get shipping very easily done. So I made these copies at a copy machine. I drew the illustrations myself. This is how to shine your shoes. So you break your shoe into 7 different sections. You wrap the cloth around your fingers, and then you polish in this motion right here. And it's pretty, tight little circles and one really big circle. So it's nothing too crazy, nothing too complicated. It was written kind of as a joke, but 28 pages, and all this really is 8 sheets of Xerox paper stapled over down the middle and then folded. Made a nice little booklet out of it. So to give you an idea, I had a really hard time with that because I really, really, really wanted to be happy. But at the same time, I was scared to death about not having enough money. And I knew that if I just went out, I'd still have to eat, I'd still have to go out and pay for rent and that sort of thing. So I tried to do both for a little while. So on my second day of work, I had just got this little booklet, and I put a small little ad out there in the mail. And it went out in a magazine called listed this, and they said, for $5, send this guy a book, and he'll send you a booklet on how to tie a tie and how to shine your shoes. And the second day at Deloitte, I got 2 orders for $5 a piece. The book was $5.95, so I discounted it already. It was selling for $5 a piece. The next day I got 7 orders. The next day I got 13 orders. And within about a month, I was selling between 50 and 100 a day. So I'm still working 16 hours a day, going to Deloitte, and then I come home, and I get all my little $5 checks out of the mailbox, and I get all these folded up and ship them all out. And on weekends, on Sundays after church, my grandparents and parents and I would sit down, and after I'd copied all the pages, we'd pull them all one over after another, staple them all over, fold them all over, and have a big stack so that at the end of the week, I'd have all the books ready to ship out that week. And I created a little software program on Excel to be able to mail these things out. Now, everybody that knows me from college, who doesn't know what I've done since then, would laugh and laugh and laugh at the idea that I've ever put out a book. The people who knew me way back when would say, you didn't know anything about publishing, and publishing a book sounds so hard. And the big publishers really didn't care at all about the book that I put out. To be fair, they were probably right. I mean, let's look at this, right? It's hand-drawn illustrations. I've got 20-some pages of light material in here. Nothing really all that great. But the really cool thing is that if you take an idea, and you take something that works really well, you could turn this into a better and better project. So what would you guys do with this book if you wanted to make it better?
Well, probably put like a hardcover or something.
Yeah, hardcover would be great. Hardcover is really expensive, but it's something to definitely look at.
Maybe make a sequel or a second book about something other than tying shoes, and something as simple as that, or shining shoes and tying ties, something as simple as that, but in a different booklet.
Kind of expanding it.
I'd actually expand that book because it seems a bit short to tell as a book, but if you made it longer, it would sell a lot.
That's a great thought.
Like what Charlie said, like you could do like bow ties or like just add on more just things you could like that.
I really wish y'all were around in 1997 when I came up with this idea. It took me a long time to figure out that I should come out with the second edition. So this was still paperback because hardcovers were still really expensive, don't forget. So it's probably criminal that I charged $12.95 for this, especially in a pre-inflationary era when $12.95 was really worth something. But this, I'd actually gotten an illustrator at a design school to do real illustrations for me. So we had the same kind of concept in here, but I doubled the length, more than doubled the length, turned it into a 64-page book. And you can see the illustrations are a little bit better. We expanded a little bit, didn't have bow ties in here, I don't think, but we did expand into, oh no, I'm sorry, I did have bow ties, yes. I've got ties and bow ties in this version of the book. Little quick confession, I had to wear a bow tie recently. I tried to read my book to remember how to tie a bow tie, and I couldn't get it. So, even though you write a book doesn't mean you necessarily have to practice every single little thing in it. But so I came out with this book, and when this book came out, I decided that I had to retire because I couldn't work until Wednesday. So I worked for 7 months as an accountant, and that was long enough for me. 7 months is a long time, obviously, but 7 months in the business world doesn't really seem like it's really long enough. I got my CPA and spent just enough time doing it that I could get out. I just needed to spend my time and then go do something a lot more fun. So I released this book, and I really didn't know anything about publishing still. Now at the time, my choices to sell this book were either have it in the back of my car, and when I found people who wanted to buy a book, I could sell it to them, which is a really bad marketing approach. I could go to bookstores and try and get bookstores to sell the book for me. Or if I really, really tried hard, I'd get another publisher to carry the book. And I could sell the rights to the book and have the publisher pick it up. And kind of like Jeff mentioned, you could actually take your book and beg a big publisher to take it, and if everything worked out well, they could go out and sell it. Well, after a good bit of work, probably way too much work, I sold it, and they made a hardcover because they were paying for it. I didn't mind them spending the money on it. But they made a hardcover book, and they actually turned it into 2 books. So this was A Gentleman's Guide to Appearance, and there's another book called The Gentleman's Guide to Etiquette. Now, because I didn't want to have to write 2 different books, probably 80% of this book appears in the etiquette book. I just took out a little bit more, added a little bit. I had a chapter on golf etiquette and a few other different areas. But I sold those rights to another publisher, and I realized along the way I learned a whole lot about publishing. The most important thing I learned was that the current model for publishing didn't work. So this is about 1999, 2000. And there's really no way to take a book and take an idea out of your head and turn turn it into a better way to make, to share information with other people. So imagine that now, that ebooks are just kind of beginning. Imagine that books are still something you consume. You still get information from the book, but you're not really sure the best way to transmit that to somebody. Now, you all know about ebooks, but ebooks were conceived of probably 15 years ago. They haven't really become popular until just recently. But what about, what would be the best way in your mind to try and get people excited about a book that you've written? If you don't want to go to a major house like this and sell a book to them, how would you go about marketing it? How could you get somebody to say, I want to give you money for that? Question? Yes?
You can put it in the newspaper or radio.
That's right. That's a great idea. Newspaper advertising was a huge part of book selling. Back in the day, back before the internet, that was really all there was. I mean, you could try and buy TV space for radio, but it was almost never worthwhile to do that. And to get people interested in it never really worked. So I would actually do radio interviews, and I probably did about 1,000 radio interviews about how to tie a tie and how to shine your shoes and why it mattered to look good. And I got really, really tired of doing radio interviews. And even more importantly, I got really tired about talking about tying a tie and shining your shoes. Today I came to talk to y'all. I'm not even wearing shoes. Well, luckily, and it's a good thing because they're not very shiny. They're over there. I'm not wearing a tie. I got really tired of getting all dressed up. So I realized that the whole business I'd kind of built on the dressing concept wasn't what I wanted to spend my time on. But I did want to spend my time in books because I learned a lot about it. And I was at a party and a buddy of mine said, hey, I really, really want to learn about writing a book because I've got an idea for 501 excuses for a bad golf shot. And I want to write a book on that. And I've got all these scorecards where I've written down silly excuses, and I think it'd be a funny book, and I want to go and write it. I said, okay, buy me lunch, and I'll tell you all about it. So we sat down, and after about 5 minutes of me explaining how a book works, how you get some editing done, how you come up with a really good concept, you begin to market it, you come up with all the strategies, he looked at me and said, this sounds like a huge pain in the neck. Can I just pay you to do it for me? I thought, what's a normal answer when someone says, can I just pay you? Exactly. And the first thing is, you'll worry about how to deal with it later, right? I had no idea exactly how I was going to do this for him. I had no idea what I was going to charge him. I really didn't know what his book was going to be about or how I was going to sell it or how I was going to get it done. But I had done it once for me, and I said, yeah, you can pay me. That's a great idea. So I got home and thought, yikes, what the heck am I going to do now? And so I started Greenleaf Book Group. The Greenleaf Book Group is a company that helps people take ideas and turn them into books. And so for me, to hear that you guys are going to put books together is a pretty awesome idea. Does anybody know what they're going to write their books on? Wow, that's fantastic. Anybody want to share, or do you want to feel really confident about their idea?
Charlie?
No. You still one hand up? All right, go ahead. That's your book.
Me and my friend are doing a book about how to not get bored in the summer, and because a lot of kids like watch TV and don't do things that are productive, so they're thinking of writing books.
That's pretty awesome. My kids are 6, 4, and 2, and they're just starting to get to that bored phase in the summertime. Yes.
Cinematography for students.
That's awesome. Yes.
Our book is for parents about how to help their kids read and book.
That's pretty cool.
I did a cookbook.
A cookbook on,
Desserts.
I love dessert. Anybody else like dessert?
Who does?
That's one of those safe questions. So, after spending a whole lot of time and realizing that I hated giving my book away to somebody else and letting them go out and sell it, I had my staff finally take my rights back. So I finally got my book. And this is actually a book that I'm pretty proud of. We came out about 1.5 years ago. And this is everything inside there with read-in illustrations. It's all the content from the last several books, all rolled into one, with the hardcover, with expanded information, with bow ties, with everything in here that I probably should have come up with on the front end, but I just didn't know about it at the time. So recently, I was talking to Mike. Anybody here over here with the give, save, spend concept?
Yeah.
So when you have money, some people teach you that you want to take not all of it and spend it all. You want to give some of it away, and you want to save some of it, and you want to go ahead and spend a little bit left. And my kids, like I said, are 6, 4, and 2, and they really had no idea that when they get money from the tooth fairy, they shouldn't just go out and spend it all. It's kind of hard for them to understand that idea. So I put together you guys have heard of the 3 Little Pigs?
Yeah.
So this is, well, let me teach you all about it. So this is the sequel to the 3 Little Pigs story. Yeah, it's like,
What did you write?
I did write this, yes. Now, I didn't, either I got really good at illustrating or I hired an illustrator. And I can tell you that I hired an illustrator. This book doesn't come out until March of next year. So this, you guys are seeing a way early pre-edition on this. But we talk about the early elements of the first Three Little Pigs story, right? And you remember how the Three Little Pigs, they made the house made of straw, out of sticks, and out of bricks. So they lived in separate houses, and the mean old big bad wolf blew down the house, and the straw house, and they blew down the stick house. So the Three Little Pigs lived happily ever after inside the brick house. And since I don't know it that well, since it's going to be hard to read upside down, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the story. You guys can look at the pictures. Well, the great idea was the pigs were happy, but the mean old big bad wolf is still knocking down the houses of the other animals. So here he is knocking down the raccoon family's house. And so as you can imagine, the other animals are pretty distraught. Their houses are getting knocked down. This mean old big bad wolf is terrorizing them, and they're pretty upset. They say, what the heck are we to do? I've got big wolf problems. So as the animals talk more and more, one of them realizes, hey, you know, the pigs had that brick house. I wonder if we could get the pigs to build us our own brick house. And so the deer come over and ask the pigs, and the pigs say, yeah, I bet we could probably do this. Hey, we could probably help you build a brick house. And the deer say, look, we don't know, we don't want to get involved in the brick building process, but can we just pay you and you can build us a brick house? And the pigs would say,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So the pigs get together, they get us a contract, they sign together, they build blueprints for it. And they set up a company called Pigs and Bricks, and they start building brick houses for all the other animals in the forest. And the deer family is the first customer. And the deer finally get their nice new house, and they're happy, and they're safe and secure, and everyone lives happily inside that house. And the big bad wolf gets really upset because the pigs keep on building more and more and more brick houses. And so the big bad wolf gets sent back, and he leaves. This is my 4-year-old daughter's favorite part of the story, because she really did not like the big bad wolf. So when he left, that was good. So the pigs open up their QuickBooks program, and they realize their profits are going way up. They're making all kinds of good money because they're being careful about how much they spend, and they're making sure they do a good job on the earnings side. And they have a big pile of cash. And this is where my kids and I were talking after the tooth fairy came that first time. And my daughter said, I want to go out and spend it. Well, the red pig, who also is a pig in the straw house, has an exact idea. He says, let's go out and buy some new clothes, and let's go out and take a vacation and get lots of ice cream. Pigs eat lots of ice cream, I'm just going to say that. And you know, it'd be fun to get a new playscape too. I had the illustrator draw our kids' playscape, and for my 6-year-old, it was pretty cool to actually have. Right? Exactly, right? Costco's deal. No, that's a great question. The color is a little bit different, and because my wife is an attorney, she recognized that if we use the exact same playscape from the one from our house, we might actually get in trouble with the playscape company. So we tweaked the colors a little bit. And so the second pig says, well, you know, it's fun to spend all this money, but think of all the things we could actually do if we gave our money away. We could give the beavers some money to clean up the pond, and then they could save the fish. And you guys, have you ever heard the story about the ant and the grasshopper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Well,
very short.
It's really short. The idea is the ant spends all his time stocking food away from the other time. And the grasshopper plays all summer.
The grasshopper dies because it doesn't have anything.
Right. Like, see, it's a little bit different now because these pigs say they can actually save the grasshopper's life by giving him a little bit of food. So in a give concept, that might actually be a good idea. And the third pig says, giving and saving, or giving and spending are nice, but I think we should probably save this money. We could put it away in the bank, and you could squirrel some money away in the bank over there. If we get a leaky roof, we might need that money. We should probably try and save the money for it. So what do? We give, save, or spend. They all kind of make sense, but you know, we think we should do a combination of all three of them. So they decided to give, save, and spend each of those. And so they throw money in 3 different piggy banks, and each time they get money, they decide to spread it evenly among the give, the save, and the spend. So we have a glossary in the back. I think Fancy Nancy came up with a glossary concept. If you use any big, crazy words, it's kind of fun for kids' books at least, if you're doing a book for kids.
I
Yeah.
love it.
They have a little glossary in the back, so it's kind of a neat idea to put a glossary in there if you're using words people don't necessarily know. And because this is a kid's book, but parents usually buy books, I put a parent's guide in the back to teach parents different ways and tips and tricks on how they might actually want to do this book, how they might want to read it to their kids. So that is a cool book idea, I think. But how else could I make money off of that idea? Anybody have any ideas? Because a book is a starting point. But there's some other ways that you could actually take that. Yes.
Publishing company?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I like that idea. Yes.
Or you could like advertise like things like you could go to like a special fair or something, and then you can advertise that there, or you know, put some deal on it because like you're there.
Sure.
Is there like a school library, like an elementary school library, and we'll make like a poster for it, so we can put it in.
Sure. We can give away a lot of these books. Luckily, I'm in a different spot right now, so I can give away lots of books. What do the pigs do with their banks?
They put kids in study.
Yeah.
So they could put shoes, paint to the bags and sell those.
Well done. So we're actually going to sell this with 3 little piggy banks that are all blank white porcelain and a big box of paint, so the kids can actually paint Give, Save, Spend on there. So if your give idea is Live Strong, you can put a yellow band on there. If you want to put your church on there, your synagogue on there. I didn't come up with this idea, but thank you. If you want to put on the spend, my daughter, so we did this with my kids, and they put a little cross on give for the church, and they put candy, I think. It was mainly candy. I think it was a toy or something on the spend. And on the save, they said they drew a bank. My 4-year-old just a bunch of scribbles. Bank it all. But they try to do it all, and then when I give them, when they get their money from the tooth fairy or something else, we give it to them in sets of fruit. So instead of $1, they get 75 cents. And we put a quarter inside each one. Or if I didn't want to be cheap, I'd give them $3, right?
$1.50.
I could, exactly. I could give them 6 quarters, and that would get it right there as well. So you guys are coming up with book ideas. And this book idea came to me because I saw something that I needed to do. Kind of like your idea of what do kids do in the summertime. I'm sure you probably had that question, what do you do as well? So you guys have about another 8 weeks or so before this book comes out. Do you know that if somebody called me and said, I want to do a book in 8 weeks, what do you think I might say to them?
You're crazy.
Those are 2 exact things. Anything else I might say to them?
Good luck with that.
Yes, that's probably it. Now here's the difference. You guys have a lot of great resources at your fingertips, and you can totally pull this off. It is completely doable. You can actually get out there and teach somebody something important for the world. And if you do it right, you can actually make money from doing it. So it's great when you have a noble goal like that, you can actually make money out of it. It works out really well. But I think you can pull this off. And I'm more than happy to help any way that I can. I think Abigail and Jeff, everyone knows that I'm here to be able to be a resource for you. But while I'm here, are there any questions you've got about the book publishing process or how it all works or anything I can answer for you? Yes.
What's your biggest lesson learned through this experience about book and publishing?
Wow. Biggest lesson is a tough one. I'll tell you a really big one for me, and I'm not sure if it's the biggest, but it's a pretty big one, is that you don't have to know everything about everything to be able to write a book. Don't feel like you have to have every single answer. My kids are 6, 4, and 2. You think I know anything about middle school kids? No, I really don't. I promise. My daughter's in 1st grade. I'm just learning. But when it comes to teaching a 6-year-old how this works, I'm working on it. I'm learning right now. When it comes to teaching high school kids, I don't really know anything about it. And it'd be very easy for me to get caught up and say, well, I don't know everything. I'm not sure I can pull this off. What do you guys do every single day when you come to school? Yes. It's all a learning process. And you don't learn anything nearly as well as when you teach someone else. So if you get a chance to write a book about something, you're going to get a chance to teach somebody else something that you probably will learn way better in the first case. You'll learn new little elements of it. So I guess for me it was a matter that I didn't have to know everything, but the more and more that I learned about it, the more that I read about other people doing similar things, the easier it got for me to be able to do it. Yes?
When you finish a book, just finish writing it, how long does it take from getting it to the publisher for it being on shelves?
Wow, that's a really great question. I spend probably about 6 hours of my day telling authors this exact story. It really depends is the right answer for you. Now, you can get it on Amazon very short. Within about a week's time, Amazon can put the book on there. They can do print on demand. You guys know print on demand?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do print on demand books where you buy the book and then they print 1 copy of it. Traditional book printing, like I did this version of it, this is a hardcover with a dust jacket. I did, I think, 5,000 copies of this book. And we saved money by doing a lot of them at the same time. So my cost per unit of doing this, when I did 5,000, was probably more like $3 a piece. If I did a print-on-demand version of it, it might be $7 or $8 a piece. So if you do a large print, it's going to add probably another 6 weeks onto it. Then you have to get it in front of the buyer. So if you want to go to Barnes & Noble, you have to have a buyer in New York for Barnes & Noble look at the book and see if they want to carry it. So the right answer to your question is probably about 6 months if you want to play the usual game for it. Yes?
It's hard for you.
Hiring the right people. There is nothing more complicated than finding the right people and making sure you've got them and keeping them. Making sure you can pay them enough, and making sure that they stay. And the really, really, really tough part is getting rid of the wrong people. There's nothing more difficult than firing somebody. Anybody know anybody who's been fired? It's totally horrible. Yeah, it's terrible. It's never fun to be fired, and I would argue that it's probably worse to be the firer because you know the pain you put somebody else through. It also reflects on me every time I fire somebody that I made a mistake hiring them in the first place. So, I know that I hire the right people, they do all the work. Yes, sir.
How do you know if the subject you're writing about is the right subject that you should?
That's a good question. So my first subject was about how to tie a tie and how to shine your shoes. I knew about it. I'd spent some time in the Marine Corps and they taught me the basics of how to tie a tie and shine your shoes. I wasn't sure it was the right topic for me, but I certainly knew it better than most of my friends. My friends had sloppy ties and they didn't really look like they knew what they were doing, so it's much easier for me to come up with that idea. The other thing is, my second book is a book on the 3 little pigs, right? So I'm not sure that that's really the right idea either, but I know that right now it serves a purpose. And my guess is there's something that you know really, really well that no one else knows and you do a great job. Any other questions? Yes?
What's the funnest thing you've ever done in publishing or writing? Or like a trick or something that you like to do?
There's a lot of options for an answer. The funnest thing I've ever done, I'll tell you what it was. My grandfather escaped from Stalin in World War II. So my grandfather was born in 1907, and he recently passed away, but he wrote his book in Ukrainian about how he escaped from Stalin and how he tried to get out of Russia and the Soviet Union during World War II. And then he tried to get into Germany, and that didn't work out so well because Hitler was also a bad guy. And how he's bouncing back and forth. And the war was over, he came over to America. And publishing that story, I think we've printed 10 copies of the book so far. We did those print on demand. But publishing that story was really pretty meaningful for me. To be able to hand his book to him and let him see it and realize that his story was finally down on paper was good. Yes.
Do you think you would be here with 2 books if you didn't go to the Marine Corps, where they taught you how to like they showed you how to do your first book to your tie?
That's a really good question, too. I don't know if I'd be in book publishing. I don't know if I'd be as disciplined. And when I went in, it was a much different time. It was well before 9/11. It was a different world altogether. So when I was in the Marines, it was a lot more relaxed, a lot less threatening. There was really no war going on, so I got to do a lot of fun stuff without a whole lot of work. But it was definitely a formative time in my life, and I wouldn't trade it for a book. Yes.
So what's your biggest motivation to write a book?
For me, it's to go out and share. Now, I'll be fair, making money is a huge motivation for me. I am a capitalist pig. I mean, there's no question about it. The 3 little pigs fit me well because I'm a capitalist pig. I like the idea of making money. I like the idea of thinking of cool ways to sell stuff and new ways to do that. But for me, I love the idea of sharing something. I love the idea of being able to teach something and knowing that you can take something and not have to be there to be able to have someone else learn from it is pretty cool. Yes.
Did you write Unschooling Rules?
Oh, I did not. Clark wrote Unschooling Rules. We just helped publish Unschooling Rules. So I met with Jeff several years ago when he came up with the idea and wanted to do it. We sat down and figured out the way to do it. And this is the second side of my business where we did not actually do any of the writing part of it. We just actually helped find printers, find editors, design a cover, get it in the bookstores, and help sell it.
Are your books in Barnes & Noble or on Amazon? How do you pick? Which one do you go to?
That's a great question. So for the traditionally published books, you don't want to limit where you're going to sell it. You want to sell it everywhere you can. If you can sell it at a gas station, you can sell it there too. If you go on CreateSpace, which is owned by Amazon, you don't want to have, Amazon won't let you go to Barnes & Noble for it. So it's kind of there's a bit of a push-pull on it. I think CreateSpace is probably the best option for most new books as you get started. But if you get started with CreateSpace, you probably are not going to be able to get on Barnes & Noble. Luckily, 95% of books sold are on Amazon and not on Barnes and Noble. So I would argue you're probably better off going with Amazon.
Clint, thank you so much. That was fantastic. We